Did I set myself up for failure here? Yes. But most people don't watch reviews for the sequels in this series, so it's fine. Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. Today, I am reviewing a high fantasy several days after finishing it with a giant amount of burnout and exhaustion. But I have so many review books to get through, so we're just gonna have to suffer through this one together. Today, I am reviewing These Gossamer Strings by Allegra Pescatore. This was my big, I will read this, I swear, book of the year because I put off book 2 so much, but high fantasy is one of my hardest to read genres. I was very proud of myself for finishing it. The problem is that literal hours after I finished it, literal last day of June, a bunch of family came to visit for days, and so I had a house filled with toddlers for days, and my brain is shot. But I also finished other review books in that time, so I can't push it off anymore. So, this is the third book in the Last Gift series. I will have the first 2 reviews down in the description below, but this kind of closes out the arc. It's not a trilogy per se. The plot will be continuing. However, the epicenter of the plot that was in this arc is not going to be the epicenter moving forward. So book 1 of this arc had Eleanor and her brother dying and her becoming the chosen one and all of that. A lot of those plot points are wrapped up in this one. However, there are still a lot of giant threats and conflicts and reveals to be held later that will continue. And as far as I can tell, it looks like a lot of side characters from this world, or from this arc rather, are going to basically take center stage as the protagonists moving forward, just purely based on who had their arc wrapped up and who still has stuff wide open, essentially. We will probably still see people from this arc as more side characters moving forward, but I am happy to see at least a couple people get their happy ending, or at least as happy as an ending as they can get. So, book 2 set us up for this book in a really big way because basically book 2 was all scheming and plotting and quietly setting up reveals. I actually criticized it for feeling too much like a second book in a trilogy because it seemed so lackluster plot-wise, especially because the end of book 1 had so many giant things happening, and you had the death of a king and the rebellion growing and a bunch of reveals and essentially a bunch of reveals that the reader knew even if the protagonists didn't, and a lot of people separated and all of that. And then book 2 was mostly just kind of dealing with the fallout of all of that. In fact, so little things happen in book 2 that book 3 begins with like the funerals from the death of a king or a goddess in book 1. Like, that's how much wheel turning-y book 2 was. But at the same time, this book is so gigantic in how fast it moves that I can't really think of how the pacing could have been evened out, because a lot of book 2 was setting up subtle things, the plots and the schemes and the reveals and the reunions that you knew were going to happen, as characters realize that, oh, this sibling may still be alive, or, oh, you have this magic, or, whatever. But book 3, you know that the entire plot is essentially going to be wrapped up 18 days from the beginning. There are 18 days until Eleanor, who is currently Queen Regent, can accept her water right and become full queen. She also has her trial for the murder of her father. You have 18 days where essentially other people are plotting to do things. Alahan is back, and you have the mystery of the incarnate and the gatekeeper and all of this stuff, and you basically get the gist that at that 18-day mark, once the 18-day mark hits, things are just gonna go. And it does. The beginning of this book still has a little bit of that spinning wheels in place thing and finishing, setting things up, but around the 350 page mark, around the halfway mark, basically, I think some character like literally says like it's time or something to that effect, and then the last couple hundred pages, again about 350 pages, is just all reveals and schemes coming to fruition, or schemes being destroyed and having to come up with a backup plan, and explosions, like literal explosions. Like, several explosions and fights, and you see finally the outcome of Eleanor scheming with the rebels and slowly trying to get the people on her side. And there are betrayals, and there are the villains and antagonists coming out with all of their contingency plans because they knew Eleanor might fight back. Like all of that kind of stuff coming out of the woodwork here. And at the end, it still has a giant, not question mark sign, like you know what the threat is, but like there's still a giant open end for the world as a whole. There's still a giant threat because over the course of the entire arc, we've been talking about, you know, the death of a goddess and other gods and an evil god across the ocean that's like pissed at this continent for not worshiping them correctly. Like there's a whole bunch of like monumental wide stuff, but it did give me the closures of a lot of Eleanor and Gabriel's stories. Damon's story is still wide open, although he seems to be coming to like a personal conclusion in this one that I assume will affect him moving forward into the next arc. But just by nature of who Damon is as a character, he's too helpful to the plot with his ability to open portals anywhere for him to ever just completely bow out of the plot. Like I can totally see Eleanor and Gabriel and Paul and that little set of Hardorians, Lyrians kind of like getting some time to just chill and be where they are and rebuild from all the explosions and, you know, figure out their new government and all of that. But I definitely see who is going to become the epicenter of the plot moving forward. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to be, but we do have some more, some shifting in the antagonists. I liked that. Mostly because I think if you had left Eleanor's aunt totally without repercussions, it would have just gotten too exhausting because Eleanor's aunt is the particularly twisted kind of villain. And while it did make for some great tension, the problem is that this book has an extremely big emotional tax to it just because of all of the negative stuff they talk about, like the literal first, the epilogue, all those years ago on Willem's birth, you have issues and struggles and big trauma-inducing moments from like literal first pages. So it's a very emotionally taxing book, mentally draining book, but you do get some amounts of retribution at the end. I do especially like what happened to Eleanor's aunt. That was very nice. I like that. I'm so happy, I got the practical polyamory that I was hoping for. If you missed it before when I talked about it, I like that this arc, this series, this world has characters that understand why they need to have arranged marriages. Like they're very politically savvy characters. And they also understand that in some cases, if they want to be good nobles, they will have to sacrifice their own happiness to a certain extent, but they just still love certain people. So they've kind of accepted, like, yeah, you're probably going to have to marry this person while still being in love with this person. And they definitely, as a whole, have found a way to, like, accept that this other person is going to be in your life, the Metamor situation. There's even one point where, and I won't go into spoilers, although if you've read book 2, it's about what you would expect. One character even looks to another and goes, I don't like you, but they love you and I love them, so I basically just have to accept that you're one of my people. Like, kind of that Metamor, someone I love loves you, like romantically, so we're going to be a unit. Like, it's not a group love polycule setup, but it is definitely a fate/political savviness requires certain relationships to exist, and we have to allow them to exist to let the plot move forward, but I still love this person. And I like that kind of aspect of they're not totally just gonna buck all of the raising that's happened. They've been raised in the court. They know what is expected of them. They're not suddenly going to buck all of that and risk actual political ties for their own selfishness, but they still get their loves. I like that practical polyamory a lot. I actually wish more books that dealt with, like, nobility or royalty could get in on that, because I hate when these characters that have presumably been raised to expect this of whoever, like, are suddenly like, no, bye, and like they never have any real consequences of it. Like, oh yeah, you can just shirk the political marriage that was gonna assure an alliance for your country and nothing's gonna happen, it's fine. Like, no, there are real issues here. There's real political machinations, and I didn't think I would like the political machinations as much, because that's not usually my bag. But the trial was perfect. The voting system and the nice big reveals, it was great. But also I liked how this this author, she she knows my weakness, which is tearful reunions. I love a good tearful reunion, but it's like you gotta give it a lot of space, right? Like, it can't just be like, oh, they're gone from each other for like 50 pages. Like, no, there are people that have been gone from each other, like separated from each other from the end of book 1, that only like over halfway through this book finally reunite, and it's perfect. I love it. Even when all the other emotionally taxing stuff was happening, I had to keep going because I knew those reunions were gonna happen. I knew it. Frederick and Eleanor freaking got me. It was so good. There's also a lot more sex scenes in this book that I was not expecting. And not a lot of full sex scenes, like mostly just foreplay, but like graphic. It's just not entirely. I mean, you can go graphic if you want. I know Allegra can go graphic because I've read other books by her that had graphic sex scenes, full sex scenes, and I like that aspect. And in general, I am really happy both with where the Lyrian crowd is for the most part, but also the big stuff set up in the future. I like that we have people who are antagonists but are set up to have possible redemption arcs. Love that we have one just total dumbass, just like the biggest dumbass that thinks he's so smart. Oh, North aggravates me something furious in this book because he is so sure that he's got the right of it and he's saving everybody, and he does some things that literally screw everybody over, and it's brilliant. I love it. I love that you made the man the one that was so sure he knew the right of things that he screws over everyone else. Like, perfect. Love it. But I think it's kind of sad because he mostly just serves as a plot device because he has to do some giant things to make other things happen moving forward. But more than any of this, and I'm really glad I just remembered this, this book has come very close to jumping the shark. And I'm not going to say what, obviously, because it's a really big plot reveal, and it was hinted at mostly through the character of Mo, but like, I didn't take off a star. Because I took off a star for the pacing of book 2, and then it came out that pacing was there for a reason. So I'm giving Allegra the benefit of the doubt here that that's gonna go somewhere. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that it just feels like really jump the sharky right now, but with context and further revelations, it might not feel that way. We'll see. I might end up taking off a star from a future installment because I'm watching very closely, but because I already took off a star for a pacing thing that in the end was necessary, I won't do it again here. But I'm side-eye. I'm a little bit given side-eye right now. But I did love it. I gave it 5 stars. Again, very emotionally taxing, very much one that you might need to go through it more slowly than I did. I did not give myself a lot of time because I really wanted to finish it by the end of the month. And I read this book in a month where I read a bunch of other really long, chunky books. Not my smartest idea, but again, what are you supposed to do when your TBR game gives you a lot of chunky books? Like, it's just how it goes. I am excited for the next arc to begin. However, I'm probably not going to jump right into it. I think I'm probably going to jump back into one of the other Allegra Pescatore series that I have. But again, if you are looking to get into this, I don't know why you watched the entire review of book 3 in a series, but if you are, definitely go back and read book 1. And I'm pretty sure even moving forward, you'll probably still have to have read the series up till now to continue. But, you know, we had some queer friends doing crazy things, and that's really all I ask. And now, I am probably gonna go lay down and sleep for the rest of the day. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.